Hi there, I'm Kendra, a registered dietitian, yoga teacher, and certified aromatherapist, specializing in PCOS and fertility. And today I have a very special video for you. If you watched last week's video, I told you that I would be uploading this one on essential oils and aromatherapy. And it's all thanks to a question that I received from someone over on Instagram who wanted to know more about aromatherapy and PCOS. So I'm super excited to have an opportunity to share this information with you, and I hope that you walk away with some tips, tricks, and tools that you can use to support yourself with PCOS using aromatherapy. So in this video, I'm going to be covering essential oil safety, busting some myths, and sharing my favorite techniques to use aromatherapy to support hormone health for people with PCOS. So let's dive right in. As the saying goes, safety first. I think it's always important that we start with knowing how to properly use oils and use them in such a way that we don't have to be overly concerned about any negative outcomes that may come as a result of using them, because we have the wisdom to use them properly. The very first thing that I learned around essential oil safety was proper dilution. Dilution just means that you're bringing down the concentration so that if you do apply it topically, you're less likely to have an irritation or some sort of reaction. The way that you dilute oils is that, or essential oils, is that you add them to a carrier of some sort. That might be an unscented body cream, it might be an unscented body butter, it might be an oil like olive oil, coconut oil, or an unscented body oil that you might have. If you're actively trying to conceive, might become pregnant, or are currently pregnant, I always recommend a 1% dilution. A 1% dilution just means that you're going to add 6 drops of your essential oil to about 1 ounce of whatever your carrier might be. 1 ounce of your carrier is about 2 tablespoons, or for my folks using the metric system, 30 mLs. So you now know what I consider to be the single most important thing that there is to know when it comes to essential oil safety. Another thing that plays a role in essential oil safety is proper storage. I always recommend storing your oils in your refrigerator if possible. It's cold and it's dark. And that's really important because essential oils can degrade over time. And if they're in a warm place, if they're in a place where there's lots and lots of light, that will make them degrade even faster. And so we want to make sure that we are prolonging their life as much as possible. That's also going to go a long way in reducing negative interactions or reactions that can happen with your skin if you are applying them topically. And the last thing that I'll say about essential oil safety is avoid using them neat if at all possible. Neat just means that you're using them undiluted. So we talked about proper dilution and proper concentrations a little bit earlier, but there are some times where people will recommend using them neat. I have yet to come across a time where that's absolutely necessary, and I'm a big fan of avoiding, if possible, any negative reactions that could occur. And so just dilute them. You're going to get the same benefits even if it's not as high of a concentration. More is not better when it comes to essential oils. Okay, so now that safety's out of the way, let's dive into some myth busting. Now, this is one of my favorite things to do. I just want you to have the truth, because it's only the truth that's really going to make a difference in your experience with PCOS. So, first myth that I'll be busting is the myth that just because a whole plant, herb or spice, has been found to be beneficial for PCOS means that using the essential oil of that plant is going to have the exact same effects. Simply not true. Now, I see this most often when I read things like cinnamon oil or spearmint oil are great for women with PCOS. I wish it were true, but we just don't have research to say that that is true. Remember, the essential oil of a plant is just a part of that plant. That might not be the active constituent that's responsible for the benefits that we see for things like cinnamon and spearmint. The whole plant, cinnamon, the whole plant, spearmint, when consumed, have been found to be possibly beneficial for people with PCOS. Cinnamon is an insulin sensitizer, so if you experience insulin resistance, it might help with that if you have PCOS. Spearmint has some anti-androgenic properties. It just means that it brings down the male hormones, and it's the male hormones that are responsible for things like acne, hair loss, or male pattern baldness, as it's called. But again, that was the whole plant. The essential oils have not been found to be beneficial. So if you want to use those oils, preferably diffused, because both of those don't exactly feel amazing on the skin unless properly diluted, and cinnamon really just shouldn't be used on the skin if you're not professionally trained. Go ahead and diffuse them. That's definitely the safer way to use them if you want to use them, but don't expect them to have the same benefit as using cinnamon or drinking spearmint tea. They're just not going to have that same effect. The second myth that's really popular is that tea tree oil and lavender oil are estrogenic. They're not. Thank goodness they're not. This idea actually came from some case studies that happened when some providers came in contact with young boys who were growing breast tissue. They took a look at their lifestyles, and one of the things that they discovered was that they were using, I believe it was maybe a body wash and a body lotion, both of which were either fragrance with tea tree oil or lavender oil, or they just had that type of a fragrance. I'm not sure if they were even actually, if they actually contained real tea tree oil and real lavender oil. And so the doctors immediately assumed, oh, it's this body lotion, these body products, and it must be the aromatic oils within them that's causing it. They didn't actually rule out that it could have been something else in their environment. They didn't rule out that it could have been a different ingredient within those products. And so it's really impossible to say that it was those things within those products that caused these particular problems for these particular boys. When we actually look at the actions of lavender and tea tree oil, we don't find that they mimic estrogen at all. So, myth busted. You can actually learn a lot more about essential oil safety in general, but specifically this tea tree oil and lavender oil estrogen myth that's so popular on Tisserand's site, and so I made sure to link that below. So definitely check that out if you want even more information about the truth about lavender and tea tree oil. The final myth, and I talked about this a little bit, is that natural equals safe. That's just not true. We know there are plenty of things in nature that simply are not safe and are downright poisonous. So am I saying essential oils are poisonous? Of course not. But I am saying that it's really important that you know which ones are safe to use in general, which ones are safe for you to use, and then how to use them properly. There are some essential oils that you actually don't want to use if you are actively trying to conceive, if you are currently pregnant, or if you might become pregnant and not be aware of it right away. And so I made sure to link as well a blog post that I wrote that has a whole list of essential oils that you would want to avoid if you are trying to conceive, you are pregnant, or you might become pregnant. Now it's time for the fun stuff. Let's talk about 3 of my favorite ways to use essential oils. Way number 1 that I like to use essential oils if you have PCOS is to use them in place of air fresheners. Air fresheners tend to be artificially fragranced. Say that fast. It's not easy, I promise. Anyhow, and it's those artificial fragrances that are actually known to be endocrine disruptors. Now, we don't really want to do a lot of things that are going to disrupt our hormones, right? Especially if you're already battling some hormone irregularities. So rather than burning a fragranced candle or using one of those like plug-ins that has the fragrance that comes out a little poof, or using even those spray air fresheners, you can use essential oils in a diffuser. My favorite one to use in a diffuser is lemongrass. I love the smell of lemongrass. And plus there are some antimicrobial properties. But that's not the main purpose. The main purpose is to provide an alternative to those less environmentally and body-friendly sort of artificial fragrances. My second favorite way to use essential oils is to support a restful night of sleep. And you do that by finding a fragrance that for you feels very calming, maybe even restorative to a degree, but anything that helps you to really set up and prepare for a restful night of sleep is going to be beneficial. So you might read things like tangerine or mandarin can be helpful for that. Lavender or chamomile. I have chamomile here. That's one of my personal favorites when I'm thinking of relaxing and winding down for the day. but everyone experiences different smells differently. So a smell that might be very comforting to me or someone else that you read on the internet might not be so comforting for you. So you know your body best, you know your experiences best, but you can always start with those three that I mentioned, pardon me, those four that I mentioned earlier. So chamomile, lavender, mandarin, or tangerine might be something that you want to explore as well. One of the not so pleasant symptoms of PCOS is anxiety and also depression. And so one of the ways that you can support yourself when you're experiencing those particular symptoms is by having something that you can turn to that you know is going to make you feel good. And for a lot of people, fragrances bring just a sense of joy. And so in that case, you don't need to have any particular oil. There are some that are linked to being uplifting. But what really matters, again, is your personal experience with the oils. I tend to turn to citrus oils when I need a little pick-me-up. There's something about them that just feel fresh and light, and they make me feel that way as well. So maybe that would be the same for you. I have lime oil here, and so I love citrus oils for that reason. They just make me feel good. And I'm curious, what sort of fragrances make you feel good as well? So you can always smell something like this. You can diffuse something like this. Again, when you're just not feeling high energy, if you're not feeling super joyful, but you'd like to, you can try this out. Oh, bonus tip. If you don't have a citrus oil, but maybe you just have a lemon or a lime or an orange or a grapefruit even in your house, you can always just use a bit of use a zester, or you can scrape against it or even peel it and smell it. And for a lot of people, they find that that's actually beneficial as well. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope you walk away with some information that you can put to use to support yourself along this interesting journey we call life. Know that I'm always rooting for you and wishing you all the best. Bye for now and be well.